Addressable has been an ask for the political space for a really long time, and this is the first year we're actually able to offer it. It serves as a complement to what they've traditionally done on their linear and digital buys, and Addressable gives them the opportunity to match that, test different creatives with predictable household data or their own data to really make sure their message is landing in the way they want it to.
So tell us a little bit how that works, how you work with your buyers to make sure that the right houses are targeted, and what their expectations are, and how this works.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard, if you had a lot of interviews today, you've heard about a lot of impressions are moving to CTV and streaming. In fact, 38% of all available impressions now are available on CTV. It's where the audience is moving. However, you boil that down for the political audience, it's a little bit different because only 25% of available impressions on CTV allow political advertising. Either they restrict targeting or they don't take it at all. So it becomes an education conversation first. We have to tell our advertisers and understand what their goals are to make sure that they're buying that in the right frequency and in the right mix. Addressable gives them the opportunity to do that in an authenticated and fraud-free environment that allows them to say, we know this is the specific audience we want to talk to. We know this is the household that they want. We want to match that in a privacy-centric way to make sure that our message is landing with the audience that we need to talk to.
So how granular can you be in terms of addressing a particular household or zip code, or what are the opportunities there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the landscape has changed. Advertisers are more sophisticated. They have more needs. They want to be more granular. In the past, it was hoping that they're watching a specific primetime show at the right time. Now we can actually ask a political advertiser to bring their own data to them, and they want to know if they have 35 plus women who vote habitually Democratic, they can have that data matched against our household data in a privacy-centric way that allows them to say with pretty good certainty that this is the audience we want to talk to.
And how do you see spend in Addressable for the presidential race versus congressional races and others?
Yeah, I mean, we service all advertisers in the political industry, from mayor all the way up to the top of the ticket on the presidential side. Everybody needs a right-sized solution, so Addressable becomes a very good complement to either a linear or streaming buy, because they actually can test a different message than they would buy on live sports or on live news with an audience that's much more segmented for them. So the spend is always, we recommend, is continue to spend like they've been spending on a linear side and a live television side. Add in Addressable from a 10 to 20% perspective to allow them to double down on reaching the voter targets.
So tell us sort of what you see in terms of trends as far as spending. As you mentioned, it's an unusual election cycle. Where do we head from here over the next few months?
The one constant, even though this has been a different election cycle, the one constant is it's still a lot of money. It always escalates cycle over cycle, and it always spends the most at the end of the year or at the end of the cycle. So we'll see that in the last 6 to 8 weeks of an election where the majority of the money is spent. Those trend lines don't change no matter how difficult the cycle is or how challenging the cycle is. We'll continue to see that, and I think why we're so excited about Addressable is as that inventory starts to get tighter and tighter in certain markets and battlegrounds, Addressable becomes a layover on top of that to make sure that they're really doubling down on the audience targeting that they need to see.
Chris, explain to us about ROI and political advertising. It's much different than selling a car or, or a consumer product. What are the expectations of the campaigns, and how do you fulfill those expectations?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Despite the changes in tactics, the goal is always the same. It's either win the election or receive a plurality of the vote. That hasn't changed. So that's a lot harder to measure on a week-by-week basis or month-by-month basis, because at the end, the votes are counted, and this is what was considered a successful campaign or not. Obviously, there's other things that go into whether or not a campaign wins, but that ROI, as you say, is always based on, was our campaign performing the way we wanted it to, and did our candidate or our issue pass? I think when we look at grading ourselves when the election is over with, did we reach the targeted audience that they want? Did we deliver the impressions that we wanted to deliver? And did they ultimately, have success, whether or not their candidate won or not? Did they have success with the metrics that they gave us as a target?
And finally, what are the opportunities or sort of executions around creative? As you mentioned earlier, it used to be they would buy spots on some national shows, or now there's so many opportunities to address an audience in a very granular way. How does that impact creative execution. Where is that going?
Well, this is the great part about that, is that now they can test different creative at the same time with a hyper-segmented audience. So going back to traditional linear TV, which is still very successful and still a very powerful motivator and driver for elections, they can run those types of advertising messages that have historically proven to be successful, put on top of that a different message for a subset of that advertiser target, or test a more aspirational message at the end of a cycle, or get out the vote message while they're running their general market message in the market as well.
And finally, you've been in this game for a number of years. What do you hope comes out of this campaign cycle in terms of innovation? What are you hoping to see, not just for political, but perhaps is instructive for the broader media industry?
I mean, I'm a data guy at heart. I'm excited to see what the performance looks like on Addressable. I'm excited to see what we can learn from that. How do we make it better? How do we make it scalable for our advertisers in elections to come? And how do we, honestly, how do we generate that excitement of this is new? We've never had this before. I'm excited to see how this lands in the political community. I'm very excited about it, and it seems like our advertisers are excited about it. I'm excited to see the data at the end.